Hey everyone, welcome to episode 6 of Highways and Hilltops. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Jody. We're so glad that you joined us today for episode 6 of Highways and Hilltops. We are going to finish out our trip at Glacier National Park today, and we're calling this the finale. Woohoo! But don't be sad, because we have much more to go on this recap of our 2024 summer road trip, and Glacier National Park was just the beginning. So be sure that you stick around for the next few episodes as we continue taking you on this trip with us, which was really, really outstanding. Okay, so we're going to jump right into our last couple of days at Glacier National Park. I think we'll get day 2 and day 3 finished today in episode 6. We have a few things to cover that are going to be awesome, and you're going to want to make sure that you go check out the pictures in the photo gallery. And I might have some videos out there for you too for this episode. Okay, so on day 2, we woke up to beautiful weather and we were itching to go see what was going on in the park. But first, breakfast.
So I spent weeks, planning this trip, and I had my Coleman stove, which I use a lot, and I thought, how cool would it be to be in the mountains, it's perfect 72-degree weather, and have some pancakes. So I've done all this research, and my favorite pancake by far is Cracker Barrel.
Yep.
So I set out to make the perfect Cracker Barrel pancake. And I spent all the time, I researched everything. I took these big old baggies and I measured it out meticulously, exactly what they said. And I got the butter and I got the right skillet. And I was so ready for this. We wake up. I just love the smell of a Coleman stove in the mountains. It just gets me going. So I get my pancake batter out, ready to go. I pour this stuff in the pan and I start cooking these pancakes, and I realize something's not right about my pancakes. They look right. They're lacy like Cracker Barrels, and they're buttery and all this other stuff. Well, here's what I think maybe happened. The elevation was so high that you need a different pancake batter in the mountains. So if anybody knows why my pancakes didn't rise, and so basically I threw all this stuff out, and then we ended up eating something that I was not nearly as excited about. But I have not figured out how to make pancakes in the mountains. They turn into this, I don't know,
really
like
flat.
Passover bread or something. It's just not good at all. So 0 on the pancakes.
I can't remember what we ended up eating for breakfast that day. Fruit and bacon, I think. And maybe some peanut butter crackers. But yeah, we were looking forward to those pancakes, so that was a little bit of a disappointment.
I would love for someone to email in and tell me what I did wrong with my pancakes. If Mom was still here, she'd tell me. But anyway. Yeah,
all we can figure is that it had something to do with elevation. But yeah, they were so seriously flat. Okay, so after breakfast, we took off to the Many Glacier area. So we knew that there was still some things we wanted to do on the east side of Going to the Sun Road, but Many Glacier was really high on our to-do list. It was about a 30-minute drive from the East Glacier KOA. They were also doing lots of road construction over on the Many Glacier Road, and we had to drive through oil, wet oil, because they were doing like chip and seal work or something. You know how that always makes you cringe. But we got down there. It's kind of a one-way in, one-way out. There are lots of trails that originate right here in the Many Glacier area. It's right on Swift Current Lake. And lots of trailheads come out of there, and you can pretty much walk anywhere in the park from Many Glacier.
Yeah, there's a great picture on the website of me and Weston standing on this lake. You got a really pretty view of it. This is a place that I so often wish I had my fishing pole, some kind of something to put on my pack. I'm going to cure that this year when we go to Acadia. I will have some type of fishing pole on my pack, but they're beautiful lakes, just breathtaking.
Very beautiful. This picture is just gorgeous. You're going to have to go check it out. It is Swift Current Lake, and it's framed by Mount Allen and Mount Grinnell. So you can see the mountains just rising up, and this lake is right at the bottom, and it's just everything that you would hope a mountain lake would look like. And then what you can't see in these pictures is from where Charlie and Weston are standing off to the left, on that bank is, and it's quite a ways over there, is the Many Glacier Hotel. And it kind of is a Swiss-style architecture, and it sits on the bank of that lake, and it's absolutely beautiful. When you turn down the road headed to Many Glacier, there's actually 2 hotels down that road. It goes toward Swift Current Lake, and then before you get to the lake, off to the left is the Many Glacier Hotel. That is the bigger of the two. But if you keep driving past the lake, there's also a swift current motor inn down there at the end. So we drove all the way to the end, mainly because we were looking for parking. So what we did was we slept in a little bit, and then we drove 30 minutes, and then there was nowhere to park. So we went through the parking lot. There were people pulled over on each side of this little road that leads up to a ranger station back behind Swift Current Lodge. And then we headed back down toward the lake. And just so happened somebody was leaving. And so we were able to snag their spot kind of off the side of the road there.
In all these places, if you'll just make a loop or two, be a little bit patient, you'll find some place.
Yeah, you will. So we were lucky that we got a spot, and then we didn't have to walk too far back to the trailhead. The trailhead that we're talking about here is the Grinnell Glacier trailhead. And I have good news about this one. It is accessible. So there are handicap parking spots, and also this trail is really wide and graveled. So it's packed gravel so that you can take a wheelchair on it. At least the first quarter mile is. And that'll get you all the way down to the edge of the lake, and you can see that same view that you'll see Charlie and Weston looking at in the photos. Once we got down a little ways, the trail was actually closed that went all the way up to the Grinnell Glacier overlook. We could have walked quite a bit farther to the other side of the lake. Actually, I think you can go all the way around that lake and back over in front of the Many Glacier Hotel. The Grinnell Glacier overlook trail was closed due to snow. Remember, we were there the last week of June, so we're still a little early as far as Glacier's travel season is concerned.
I still like to go a little bit early in June. I just think that, certain times of the year things begin to get a little bit more crowded. If it feels like we missed out on some stuff, because we've mentioned a few things have been closed, there's so many of these places to hike and so much to see. One little spot being closed is not a big deal. They could even have, they might close a spot because of something going on with weather or a car wreck or a car broke down or anything. So don't feel like that's a big deal. Missing a spot's no big deal. There's 100 more just like it, just right down the road. And we started walking around the lake, and we went up to the Grinnell Trail. And as we started down through there, it was real glady and flat, which is kind of a standout because there's not a lot of flat anywhere in these places.
Yeah.
But as we walked through those woods, it was, again, real glady, but we've seen several different things down there. We've seen some deer down there and different things. In any direction, there was a million things to see.
Yeah, for sure. Also, if you're planning on visiting in 2025, there is a season notice out on the National Park Service website for the Many Glacier area. I believe that I read they're replacing a lot of the water line infrastructure around the Swift Current area, and that's causing a lot of construction in that area that's messed up parking. So don't be sad, because here's what they've done. They've just moved parking out a bit, and they're shuttling hikers in. So you will want to go out there and read that full notice. Many Glacier Lodge is still open to the public this summer, and if you're staying in the lodge at Many Glacier, then you can drive in and park there, from what I understand. But if you're going in for a day hike or some other type of activity that originates out of the Many Glacier area, you're going to have to park outside of the actual area and ride a shuttle in.
If you're not an RVer, man, these are some of the most beautiful hotels right on the edge of that lake I have ever seen. It reminds me of kind of like that Swiss Alps look. Is what the first thing I thought when I seen it. And, think about this is when you walk out of your room and walk out of the front door of that hotel, you're there. I mean, the trail starts there in the parking lot.
Yeah, that's
and so
awesome.
You can be on the back side of the lake, front side of the lake, be way up in the mountains. And again, as soon as you come off the end of that trail, you're back at your room.
Yeah, remember, this is that park lodging that we talked about back in episode 1. If you're wanting to do, or maybe it was episode 2, one of the earlier episodes, if you're wanting to do park lodging, you need to be looking for it right now if you want to go this summer, and you might be a little bit late. But you could get out there and check. People cancel all the time. Just call those hotels and lodges and see if they have anything that has come open. A lot of people book way out just in case they get to go, and then they end up canceling their reservations.
I don't think it matters whether you're camping outside the park in an RV or in the lodging. There's just not a bad spot. And even from where we stayed, we mentioned it was at St. Mary's on the east side. You can get through this park so quickly, it seems like. Every bit of it is just really accessible. I remember some of our trips like Yellowstone and other places like that, you had to travel a ways to get to the things, and this one just feels like everything is right there. So
yeah,
it's no secret we really love this place, but it just feels so convenient.
Yes, it does, that's for sure. So after we left Many Glacier, and by the way, that hike, even if you don't go all the way up the Grinnell Glacier Trail, is so worth it, because it is such beautiful views in a compact area. Definitely a place you want to visit. After we left there, we decided we were hungry for lunch, so we drove back in the east entrance around Going to the Sun Road up to St. Mary Lake Overlook. The cutest little chipmunks were playing on the retaining wall at the overlook there. Weston took a really great portrait photo of a little chipmunk just standing up on his back feet, and it looks like he has wings because there's a sprig of grass that's just sticking up behind him. And it looks like little wings.
I mean, everybody's seen a chipmunk, right? Why chipmunks? They were living in that bluff, and there were so many of them, and they were going straight up and down that sheer rock face to get into those holes. That's what kind of caught our attention, is there's so many, and where they were living, it was just kind of wild.
Yes, and there was also a marmot there. And if you're not familiar with marmots, they scream like, I don't even know. I can't explain their scream. Go look it up on YouTube, because there's some people out there that have recorded marmots like screaming, and it's something everybody should hear. We got a good picture of a marmot too, so if you've never seen one, be sure that you go check out the photo gallery. He kind of looks like a woodchuck that you would see around Oklahoma. After we finished lunch, then we went down to the St. Mary Falls area, because we knew we wanted to go on this St. Mary Falls hike. The small hiccup here was that we were afternoon, and it's a beautiful day, by the way. So when we got back down to the St. Mary Falls parking lot, it was full. And this is that little story where I'm not sure if it was me, okay, it was probably me, that said, there's another parking lot just down there.
It's only a mile away. Right. Well, a mile from space to space in the real world when you're walking ridges is a lot farther.
It's a lot farther. So we ended up parking down at Sun Point. So from the Sun Point parking lot, you go down a set of stairs to a really beautiful overlook of St. Mary Lake. This overlook has a grand mountain in the background. It was still snow covered in late June, and then framed by the evergreen trees and just the green that was growing out by the rocks. It was really, really gorgeous.
So these trails go left and right. So the cool thing about it is there's good signage in the parking lot. You kind of know which way you're going. You kind of know how far it is. You get a choice. There's an arrow going this way, arrow going that way. It tells you how far it is. But as soon as you get to this staircase, we turned right and we walked along the edge of the lake. So pretty. This is by far my favorite spot in the whole place and my favorite spot of the trip, because we're not hikers in the traditional sense. We do a lot of hiking, but we don't get crazy into the 20-mile hikes. And so this place, for your average hiker, I just love it. Again, you're walking the bluff line, you're walking right down the edge of the lake, and it's just, again, my favorite spot.
In this trail, it gets wide in areas, but when you first start out, it's pretty narrow. It really feels like you're way farther off the road than you actually are, because you're kind of in between the road and the lake for a good ways down through there, at least from Sun Point parking lot to St. Mary parking lot. We walked through wildflowers that were waist high. On each side of the trail. They're beautiful purple. I'm not sure what they're called, but they are really amazing. To the left of the trail is all a burn area from an old wildfire, and because of that, the view to the lake is really open.
From this elevation, looking down at the lake, you can see some of the biggest old trees that are submerged in that lake. You can see all the brush piles and the fish. It's just, with this super clear water, and again, you're elevated looking down, it's just gorgeous. We walked down that trail just a little ways. We got through those flowers you'd mentioned. We come around some bends. There's some great big rocks, and right in between these two huge boulders, there's deer standing there.
Yeah.
And, just almost, you're just kind of face to face with the wildlife on this trail. And this is where I really begin to realize we're going to see some stuff on this trip, right? Because it's such a bluff line on one side of the lake and it's elevated on the other side, these animals are walking the same ridge. Mm-hmm. So we came around the corner, we seen the deer, we stopped. I backed up behind the rock and we got everybody gathered up and we got to watch them for a while, which is a lot of fun. And then we went just a little ways, made a few more bends, come across some beautiful streams coming off the mountains because, the same waterfalls, right, mm-hmm. with these elevations. And then there we go, mule deer standing right in front of us.
Yep.
And then we just kept going a little bit further, and then we worked our way down to that bridge. Do you remember that really pretty bridge where the falls was?
Yeah. If you'll go look in the photo gallery, you'll see a couple of the deer that we saw on this trail. They were young mule deer and in velvet. And so it's so fun to get to see them when their antlers are still covered in velvet. He had little nubs on top of his head, and I've got a picture of him peeking at me through the branches that I took with my 400 millimeter lens. So I was not nearly as close to him as the picture makes it look. We were quite a ways away, actually, but you can see his little nubs on top of his head with velvet, and they're so
great
cute.
Big brush pile between us and them too. You know, it's funny, these deer, for sure, at least the deer, they use the same trails.
Yeah.
So just like at home, when you cut a trail in the woods, the deer tend to use the same trail. So
yeah, and if you'll go look at that one picture, you can kind of see a group of hikers that are stopped behind him, the smaller deer, because they didn't want to push him up the trail. We were meeting them coming from the other way, and everybody's so good about just stopping and letting them, go whichever way they want to go and not pushing them. But if you'll look at the background of that picture, you can see the scarring from the wildfire still on the trunks of those trees. And you can see a few of the fallen trees. When you're standing there looking out across there, it's just fallen tree after fallen tree after fallen tree. So you can see why they want to use that trail.
It's funny when those wildfires come through those places and you get those winds through the valleys. They get pretty severe. But all those places that burn, the first thing everybody says, oh, what a shame this burned. But if you'll look at that picture, it's all the new growth that's feeding all those animals. So especially the deer. When something like that burns, it's kind of a natural process. It clears the forest floor, and then you get all this new growth that honestly really, carries more tonnage, I guess you would say, of feed in those areas than the big canopy top forests.
Yes. So the first waterfall that we came to was Bering Falls. And the name of this hike is the Three Falls Trail, just so that you guys know. So if you start at some point, you actually get 3 waterfalls on this hike. It's just 6.5 miles.
Well, I think that this was supposed to be a 3-mile trip.
It was.
And we turned it into a 7-mile trip plus.
Yeah, we did do that. We being me. That was my navigation.
But it wasn't that
day.
bad. I mean, even at a 7-mile hike, I was a little bit worried about not getting back before dark, which I did not want to do. And we made it just fine. It's really not as far as you think it is, especially when a lot of these are running with the ridge lines, and it's not like you're mountain climbing here. So.
Yeah, for sure. Down at Bering Falls, there is a pretty narrow footbridge. It's really like, is that like 2 2x12s or something?
They look like lodgepole pines.
Oh yeah, I bet that's what it is. I bet it is a big cut pine. And they do have handrails on this footbridge, but it is one of the most narrow ones that we crossed on all of the hiking trails.
Very safe though. 2 huge log pole pines stacked side by side, bolted together, and then they used smaller lodgepole pines to make the rails. Kind of cool.
Yeah. This little waterfall, I say little waterfall, I mean, it's really beautiful. It had a lot of water coming off of it, but when it hits the rock, it just goes into a nice shallow stream. So some people were wading in the stream. There's also a big shelf. When you're standing and looking at it, it will be to our left. If you'll look really closely in one of the pictures, you can see Weston up on that shelf that you can get to from the hiking trail over beside Bering Falls.
You mentioned the bridge. We were talking to some rangers, and some of this construction is really neat in here, and we were like, well, how are they getting this in here? Because you're talking about miles in and, all this elevation and stuff. And a lot of this stuff is done by volunteers and different rangers and things, and they carry chainsaws in and cut these up and carry in these hand drills and drill the holes. I mean, these are a lot of work. When you get to thinking about every place you cross like that, how would you like to hike in 7 miles, hand cut these trees, hand shape them with a chainsaw and put them together as a bridge? It's really, really neat. Big shout out to all the volunteers and the rangers and things like that work so hard to keep these places nice.
Yeah, and also cutting the fallen trees down off the trails and just keeping the trails really nice. All the trails we walked on were great.
I've even seen some of the trees that fall across the trail and they cut the middle of it out. And some of those, you put your hand up on them, they're higher than your head. Mm-hmm. And so to think about a tree that's, say from your knees to your head or whatever, just huge. I mean, just to cut those out, they're not carrying in the little chainsaws. These people are packing in some really heavy equipment.
Yeah. Another thing I really loved about this hike was, remember how we walked down some of those rocky crags that were right beside the trail? And then over on the other side, it's just a nice gentle slope off to St. Mary Lake. And in those rocky crags, so many different colors of rock. That's where we saw the teal rock. And I was like, ooh, if my mom was here, she'd want to take that home.
Yeah, and as you get farther down this trail and you get to where you're talking about where the falls are coming into the lake, it changes again. The back side of this lake, on the back side of the trail, right where the falls come in, really looks like moose country. You start seeing all those glady spots with all that stuff really growing out of the water. One of these days I'm going to see a bunch of moose in there. I just know it.
Yeah. And don't worry, y'all. I was watching for snakes on this trail, and I didn't see any. But with those rocks right beside our heads sometimes, I was like, ooh, I know what's in those rocks now. So I was watching for them, you can bet. So we made our way on down to St. Mary Falls, and St. Mary Falls is awesome as well. When you get down to St. Mary Falls, there's a pretty substantial bridge over that part of the creek that flows into St. Mary Lake, because St. Mary Falls is kind of dangerous. But if you look up statistics on Glacier National Park, some people have climbed up to the rocks, and there are signs that say to stay off of them because they're slick. And they're not kidding. People have climbed up there and kind of met their demise by falling in. St. Mary Falls is a big waterfall, and the water coming off of it is seriously turbulent at the bottom, and it shoots out into the creek with a lot of rapids for a pretty good ways down through there.
Yeah, this is what the whole hike is about, these falls, and that's why everybody's going down there, just to see these falls. And yeah, you're right, it's just beautiful, it's serious. But again, we can't say enough that keep in mind when you're out here, no matter what you're doing or where you're at. You know, I mentioned that I like to hike slower, and I have the walking stick because I keep a better pace and I don't get as tired.
Yeah.
But the truth is, if you'll slow down and you get to see more wildlife, I just like to enjoy it. But if you've ever walked any of these creeks and you know how the moss grows on the rocks and how slick they get, most people already know this, right? They don't have to be told, but it's just something to keep in mind. It doesn't take much to twist an ankle, and you're 7 miles down in here. I mean, it'd be a miserable trip out of there, but just be careful, be safe. And I just like to go slower anyway because it's a better pace for me, and I just like to enjoy it.
Yeah, and y'all, seriously, if there's a sign that says don't get on the rocks, there's probably a reason.
Yeah.
So don't get on the
slick
rocks.
is not a strong enough word to these rocks are, this is like snot. You'd like to think people just didn't think.
That
right?
they just didn't recognize the risk. Yeah. For sure. If you cross the bridge there at St. Mary Falls, then you can wind on up the mountain. It is an uphill hike to the top of Virginia Falls, but man, it's really pretty up there. If you keep on going, that's actually the Gunsight Pass Trail. And while we were there, Gunsight Pass Trail was closed. I'm not sure why, if they were doing some construction or if there was a washout or something on down that trail. But you could get all the way up to Virginia Falls, and it's really, really beautiful. So I've got some Virginia Falls photos out there for you. So be sure and go check out those pictures of the 3 falls hike: Bering Falls, St. Mary Falls, and Virginia Falls, all in the photo gallery of episode 6. You're going to want to be sure and go check those out because they are really magnificent. I think this trail, the St. Mary Falls Trail, has everything to offer. It is wooded enough, it is rugged enough. And speaking of rugged, you're going to want to wear probably a good hiking shoe on this trail because it is rugged and it has varying rocks as you walk down through there. So you need something with a good grip. And it's not like you're climbing anything, but if you're like me and you can trip over a pebble, then you kind of need to watch where you're going and be mindful that just because you step your foot down flat doesn't mean your next step is also going to be flat.
Yeah. Don't get caught looking in the sky or out too much and stumble, right?
Yes.
This is a real hike. This is no joke. That's why this is my favorite. I love it. It's got everything. I think it's probably one of the type of hikes where I can catch my breath and then go back into a hard climb and catch my breath. And so we seem to have made it really good on this one.
Yeah.
And, we talked about this, we say this a lot, but also you have weather that can come in on you, right? So we mentioned in a previous episode all the things we like to wear, like the hiking shoes, padded socks. We carry the backpacks with water. We have, our raincoats and things like that. And so we actually go back and hike this trail in the rain, if you remember right. Mm-hmm. So, again, you just kind of come into all these different climates and these different weathers that come in and out. Any of these elevations we described, early on, all those roads, any of these elevations, you just know you're a lot closer to the weather. And, it makes it change rapidly.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind about the St. Mary Falls hike is when you're fresh and you start off, it's just a gentle slope all the way down to the falls. Yeah. But you have to come back. Yeah. And it's a gentle slope all the way up to the parking lot. But it is, I would say, I would probably call this maybe a moderate hike, just because of the ruggedness of the trail and the length of the trail. And then it's when you're tired coming back that you have to walk the slope up.
Well, if you're going to walk down, when you get to the falls, that's snack time.
Yes.
Right? It's time to get something to drink, which we actually drink as we go. But getting a snack, prepare for that coming back out. And the main thing is just slow down and enjoy it. I see people walk so fast on these trails, and I'm just like, I wonder if that's the person that's going to stumble, right? So
yeah, and this was a great trail to have your walking stick on.
yeah, especially when you feel like on one side it's a sheer cliff, and on the other side it's a sheer cliff, and it's only a foot or two wide. It's nice to have a little something. The guy could stumble pretty easy or slip.
Yeah, and sometimes when you meet other groups on the trail, you kind of have to scoot way over to one side or the other and try to let each other pass, and you can kind of get on a little bit of uneven terrain.
It's always on my mind too. If I come around the corner and there's a snake laying in the trail, I like to have a little something in my hands, just in case something were to happen.
Yeah, for sure. So that's going to do it for the Three Falls hike. Y'all be sure and go check out the photo gallery for that. After that, we left. We were all ready for dinner. This is when we ate dinner at that fancy hotel restaurant over in St. Mary with all the big windows and the trout stream. And what did you have?
I had the buffalo ravioli.
Buffalo ravioli.
It was really good. This is a neat place. It's just right outside that east entrance, just on the right as you're coming out of the park. Like you mentioned, kind of a log-style restaurant. It was really good. This is probably the place that you would have a meal on your trip there, just so you did, because it's fancy and nice. But it's probably not an everyday type of place to eat.
Yeah, it might be a little pricey for every day. And I, for the life of me, can't remember what I ate there. But I do remember the gift shop that was in the front part of the hotel. And it's actually run by the Blackfeet tribe. And so there's a lot of Native American arts and earrings and things like that in there.
Crafts and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so...
And they also have, just right there is a convenience store where you can get gas and all those things too. And it's a big convenience store. It's got a lot of stuff in it. Probably used to campers.
Yeah, and just for funsies, so remember, yesterday when we got back to camp, we found out we had a mouse in the van. And then today, well, we had stuff to do, so he just rode around with us in the van today as well. So after we ate, we went over to the grocery store, which is also kind of right there, like the little hotel, restaurant, gift shop, gas station, grocery store, like all bam, 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 right there together. And we went to the grocery store so we could find a mouse trap. And then you'll recall the story from episode 2 of when we finally caught the mouse, and that was this night.
It's seasonal, so you're not going to be able to get everything there. But if you need a few things, something to grill, it's a good place.
Yeah, it was. All right, so that's going to do it for day 2 in the park, and we're going to jump right on into our third and final day in Glacier National Park. I just never want to leave anywhere, y'all. It's a thing with me.
Yeah, these are fun places. I think for us, you ask why do we like to do this and why the RVs and why the national parks. We grew up, rodeoing as kids and early in our marriage, and we just always liked the adventure of that, just going and the free feeling. I think that's it for me.
Yeah.
That's why I like this hike we just talked about so much. You're just so far up there, and it's just such a free feeling, and that's what a trip to us should look like.
Yes, for sure. We are definitely adventure seekers, and we just want to do what's fun and what sounds good, and we have to make ourselves be grounded and think about the reality of situations sometimes, because we're both chasing the fun.
That's no fun.
That's no fun at all. It was kind of a stormy day in the park. To be honest, we didn't care. We just put on our rain gear and went anyway.
I'm realizing just how big a day 1 was. We did a lot.
Yeah, we really did.
That kind of gives you an idea of all you can do in a day if you're planning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I woke up to some rain. Not a big deal, right? It wasn't a horrible rain. And the rain comes in and out of these places so fast.
It does.
So you can wait it out pretty easy.
People just do things in spite of the rain. So we got up, we drove 45 minutes down Highway 89 to Highway 49, which leads to the Two Medicine area of the park. Now, a little note about Highway 49. This is a highway that's closed during winter weather because it is sort of one of those mountain passes. It's nothing scary like the ones in Colorado, but it does have some really beautiful views. And it is sort of a shelf along the edge of a mountain. So it's kind of hard for them to keep the road in good shape.
And it's not like going on the Sun Road that's the main attraction. It gets lots of attention, I would think. But yeah, this road, it's got potholes, and I mean, it's kind of one of those roads. But again, this is another slow trip. You're driving slow, so it's,
Yeah, we definitely had to slow down. Big areas of patching where you can see that the winter weather has really taken a toll on the road. So if you drive Highway 49 over to the Two Medicine entrance, you're just going to want to slow down and enjoy the views down through there, because you're driving along the shelf on the mountain with a great view of Two Medicine Lake over to the right, which is another beautiful glacial lake, and just the sweeping views are really, really outstanding. Out of the Two Medicine area, there are also several hikes, and there's one campground that I know of over at Two Medicine. So if you're looking for an in-park campground, this is one of those that you might be able to stay at. We chose to go on the Running Eagle Falls hike. Remember, it was raining. It wasn't storming at this point, but it was a nice steady rain.
Again, when you have a canopy like these are in the woods, it's a different rain. That's part of it. Yep. I mean, it's more like a dripping rain when you get in there and the canopy's so heavy. It's quite a bit different than being, if you're out on the top of a mountain somewhere, you probably would feel differently. But I don't mind when it's raining in these heavily forested hikes. Yeah, I think it's part of the experience.
Yeah, this one did have lots of trees, and it was more of a valley hike, so you weren't walking up the side of a mountain. In fact, it's very flat. It is another handicap accessible trail with packed gravel. That was nice because it wasn't muddy. So we were really happy when we got over there, especially since it was raining. I would say somewhere between a mist and a light shower is what the rain was probably doing here. It's a short, less than half a mile trail down to a bridge. And all of that part up to the bridge is handicap accessible. Wide enough for a wheelchair and nice, tightly packed gravel. So it makes it a short, nice walk as well. And the falls, it's really beautiful from the bridge.
Yeah, when you get down there and get to this bridge, it's just kind of a split log type of bridge. It's not deep. This is more of a trout stream. So yes. I really like that as well. So this is one of those places that I kind of walked up and down the trout stream looking for some trout. And so really, really pretty. You get to see all the different colored rocks when there's not rapids. It's more of a clear, I would say this thing was 3 or 4 inches deep in spots. And so
it's not very
just
deep.
A different kind of view. Definitely worth it to drive over.
Oh, for sure. And I've got a little video of myself walking across the footbridge, which, by the way, doesn't have any handrails. So it feels, okay, I'm not a gymnast, so this is a balance beam to me. Although it is, I don't know how wide it is, about 2 feet. Right.
Yeah, but again, when you get on this bridge and you look at it, you're going to see that there's some craftsmanship here. These people had to do this by hand, and they carried their tools in, and it's really, really neat.
Yeah, it is for sure really awesome. If you do get brave enough to walk across the footbridge with no handrails, if you fall, the creek's really shallow. It's probably cold, but it's really shallow. The Running Eagle Falls is really magnificent. It is kind of narrow at the top, and then for the first, I would say a little past midway, it's like a narrow fall. But then it opens up into this wide opening, and as we got closer, we realized it was like a cave.
Yeah, it's like the water's going under and over.
Yeah.
So there's water shooting out of this cave, and then there's water falling from the top. It's really, really kind of neat.
It is awesome. You have to go see it. There was quite a bit of water rushing out of there when we were there, but just the water spilling over the top and the water coming in from the bottom. At first you're like, what is happening? Because it kind of looks like it's hitting a shelf and spreading out. But then the closer you get to it, you realize that the water is coming through. It's either a crevice or a cave or something back in those rocks, which is really neat. Once you get across the footbridge, it gets a little more rugged over there. The trail is really narrow on that side, and there were lots of people over there kind of climbing around, even a few kids climbing around on the more muddy side of the trails for us that day. Definitely a beautiful waterfall, a great short, easy hike. Anybody could do this one, and like I said, we even did it in the rain. Fun fact, Running Eagle Falls is named for a female warrior of the Pecuni tribe. I took a photo of the placard, the informational placard that they have on the trail, so that you can go read that. I'll put that photo out on the website. www.highwaysandhilltops.com. Make sure you go check out the photo gallery if you want to read that whole story of Running Eagle. It's a pretty cool story to read, and it's fun that she has been celebrated for her bravery and for being a warrior of their tribe. Once we left the Two Medicine area, we continued down Highway 49. Remember, this is that mountain pass highway. We decided we wanted to get something to eat, and we saw on the map that we could go over to the little town of East Glacier and maybe pick up a bite of pizza or something like that. As we started down there, a nice surprise was that we ran right into the Glacier Park Lodge. And this lodge was amazing. Honestly, we probably should have taken the time to stop and just walk in it and go see what it's all about. So this is another reason we're going to have to go back to Glacier National Park.
Again, another Swiss-style lodge, which is really neat to be in the mountains and see these Swiss-style structures. Just really pretty.
Yes. In fact, I read that the rooms at Glacier Park Lodge don't even have televisions. Because you can just wake up and look out your window and see everything that a person needs to be able to see. It is framed by the mountains, beautiful views from Glacier Park Lodge. The lodge was built in 1913 by the Great Northern Railway. In fact, there's still an Amtrak station right outside Glacier Park Lodge.
You mentioned no TVs. It just dawned on me, I didn't turn on the TV for this entire glacier trip.
Also, if you recall, the sunset was really late up there. We were walking around the KOA at like 9:45 and still had sunlight.
Absolutely. I did notice that. It was like long days.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really hard on us because we're kind of those people that as long as the sun's up, we're going and doing and busy, and it's not time to go to bed till it's dark.
Yeah, a hammock and an afternoon nap up here in these mountains, it would be fantastic. We might need to learn how to slow down just a little.
We probably should a little. So a good little FYI for you. I did a little research, mainly because my mom doesn't like to fly. And I've been trying to figure out how could we go back to Glacier and then get mom there. And here's what I came up with. There is actually an Amtrak station in Oklahoma City, and you can get on the Amtrak there and ride it to Fort Worth. And then you can get up the next day and take the train from Fort Worth all the way to Chicago. And then get up the next day and take the train from Chicago all the way to East Glacier Park. And you would be right outside the Glacier Park Lodge. So I'm thinking this is a great idea for my mom. So we can keep her on the ground and get her to Glacier National Park in 3 days.
Yeah, when you get to looking into this is a big deal. There's a lot of people that have bucket lists to ride these trains to these parks.
So I'm trying to talk Charlie into doing a train trip with me to Glacier. So you guys need to chime in if you think that he should do a train trip to Glacier National Park with me. Let us know. Drop comments on our social media. Email me at jody@highwaysandhilltops.com. We'll do a little poll. Who thinks that we should try to take the Amtrak all the way to Glacier and hang out? As beautiful as the views are from the highway, can you imagine what they're seeing from the train?
Yeah, and if you look at these trains, there's some of them that's got glass tops, or not completely, but like glass windows on the tops. They have meals on the trains. They have sleeping quarters on the trains. I mean, this could be a really big deal. And probably, I don't know yet, but probably economical, especially when you're talking about all the other travel and bringing your RV on trips. So yeah. I'm at least curious.
That's true. Me too. I mean, we may not like it. So here's what I told him. We need to do Oklahoma City to Fort Worth, because then if we hate it, we can make someone drive to Fort Worth and get us. And then if we love it, we might be like, hey, we should do this. We should go on and do Fort Worth to Chicago and Chicago to East Glacier.
We have thought about taking the RV and going someplace like this and then just kind of parking it for a few days and take one of those trips. And I know some of them are even round trip. Of course, they're overnights. Yeah. But go one way, stay the night, come back. I think you're onto something. These train tracks that have to go around the edge of these mountains, that's got to be amazing.
Yeah. The only problem would be our Sour Patch dog. I'm not sure if anybody would babysit him.
Yeah.
So we always have to think about Traveling Scout. Remember, he has a hashtag Traveling Scout. He can be grumpy. All right, so we went on over to East Glacier, Montana, and we ate a little pizza joint called Stage Line Pizza. It was actually really good.
Yeah, this is really a great place to eat. It's an old-style pizza joint, especially if you're looking for something close to the lodge.
Yes, for sure. So after we got our bellies full, we headed back toward camp, and we weren't really sure what we were going to do because it was still raining. It wasn't raining hard, but it kind of was on and off, and we would drive through hard rain, and then we would drive through quite a bit of wind, and then it would let off. And so we had a little drive back to camp since we had driven all the way over to the town of East Glacier. And by the time we got back down on Highway 89, we knew we wanted to pull off at the Blackfeet Highway Memorial. We just wanted to stop and see what it was all about. It has some really cool Blackfeet Indian statues. These statues are made of barbed wire and rusted automobile scraps.
Yeah, it's really cool that they're honoring the Native Americans in there, that especially that, this was their land. And we'd mentioned earlier in some other episodes that you and the kids are Cherokee, right? So it's fun to see that, kind of their heritage and kind of see some of that stuff.
Yeah, these statues are built on bases that are made of natural sandstone blocks, and those blocks were actually taken from the Two Medicine Catholic Mission that was built back in the 1800s. So the history of these statues is really cool. They're really stunning. And the artist's name was J. Labor, and he made these statues, and they are sitting at all 4 entrances to the Blackfeet Reservation. There on Highway 89, when you see the statues, you can't miss them. I mean, you're going to notice them from the road.
Sure.
There's also a teaching garden there with informational placards, so you can walk through there and read about the history of the Blackfeet Indian tribe. And there's also a teepee made out of that same material.
It's really neat to see that thing close up. So we did go down there and walk through that. Again, you can't miss it from the road. There's not a lot of trees right there. That's really kind of a what you would call a prairie type spot.
Yeah, it is. Kind of where it flattens out there on the highway. So you may want to check that out. Again, that is the Blackfeet Highway Memorial out on Highway 89. You can find those statues at all 4 reservation entrances around Glacier National Park. Okay, so when we pull over here, it's still a little bit rainy. We all get out, look at these statues. They're cool. I've got pictures of them out on the photo gallery. And then you weren't feeling so great.
Yeah, it's been raining. I've been driving a lot. We're a long ways into this trip, so it was time for a nap. So yeah. That's a bad thing about the van is there's always a bed right there waiting on you, no matter where you're at. I say bad, maybe good.
Maybe good.
But, man, when you get in there and you open those windows in the mountains and you get that breeze coming through there and you've got a good place to nap, I thought, well, I'll just recharge a little bit. I'll just sleep for a little bit. And, again, we mentioned the long days. I'll get another opportunity here when it quits raining.
So, guess who wants to drive? Not Jody. Weston, of course, who's been riding all this time. Dad, let me drive. He's 16, y'all. But he did drive me, and he did a good job.
If there's a kid that can drive anything, it's this kid. He can sure drive. So
he can drive.
I wasn't too worried about that. I was more worried about where we might end up.
Yeah. So Charles is in the back, laying down. Weston and I are trying to figure out, what are we going to do in the rain? So he drives us back to the east entrance. When you go in there, it's kind of a round curve around the end of St. Mary Lake, and then there's a little pull-off right there, and you still have a cell signal at that point. So I told him to stop. Well, first of all, St. Mary Lake sort of looked like the ocean because the wind was coming down through that valley so hard, it was causing whitecaps. And I tried to take a picture of them, but none of my photos do justice to the size of these whitecaps. The lake is so big that the waves look little, but I'm telling you guys, they were not little. The wind was whipping. It was shaking the van. It was whipping down through there so hard. So we sat out there for a little while. We watched the weather map. I was thinking it was going to pass. And then as soon as I would think it was going to pass, it looked like another wave would come across. And so Weston and I are just sitting in the van. Charles is asleep in the back. We're bored. And so Weston starts gigging at me. Mom, let's go hike to St. Mary Falls. And I said no. The rational mom part of me knows that this is not a good idea to go hike this 3-mile hike in a storm. And then he says, nobody will be in the parking lot. And I said no again. And I said no for like 30 minutes. And then his persistence was wearing on me. The wind was slowing down. The weather map appeared to look like things were going to try to clear out. It wasn't thundering anymore. You know, there was still some pretty good gust of wind from time to time. But finally, I gave in.
I think I did wake up and say, look, if y'all are going to go hike, you know what happens in a valley. when the rain really starts cutting loose, right?
Yes.
You're going to get washed away. So if you're going to go hike and it does start washing you away, get out of the valley and come back a different way. But anyway.
Yep. He did warn us and was like, I just don't think this is a good idea. And I was like, we'll be fine. It's going to be fine. And there were like 3 cars probably in the parking lot. So this was a good day for Weston and I to try out all the rain gear because the rain was coming down fairly hard at times and the wind was making it pelt me right in the eyeballs. So I had to take my glasses off because they were getting, of course, splattered all over. And then that rain felt like a needle poking you sometimes. It was coming down pretty hard. But we had a great time. We ended up having a great time. This was one of the most fun times I think Weston and I have ever had together since he's been a teenager. Just going on that hike. I did take Charlie's walking stick. We were in full rain garb. We had hats on to try to keep the rain from hitting us in the face. And we walked all the way to Virginia Falls that day in the rain. We did pass a few other hikers. One really cool thing was the wind. As the wind was whipping down over those mountains and then down into the valley, it makes this eerie whistle kind of sound. And Weston and I kept walking, and then we would hear it through the rain, and we would stop for a minute and listen because we weren't sure if it was an animal or what was going on at first. And then when we realized that was the wind just howling through there, we had this cool conversation about, man, can you imagine if you were tent camping out here somewhere and a storm blew in overnight, just hearing that howling of the wind as it flowed down through those valleys? It would be a little scary after dark, but I think overall I would do that again 100 times over because I could have gotten scared by the what ifs, but I knew enough about reading weather maps that it looked like it was starting to clear out a little. And by the time we made it back to the van, the rain had stopped. The trail was muddy. There was water running across it in some areas we had to jump over or walk through in our hiking boots, but we really did have a great time. And the best part was when we got to the top of Virginia Falls, I looked back and there was the parking lot. We had made it down into the valley and then back up to the top where we were almost level with the parking area. So I snapped a pic. You'll have to go out and look in the photo gallery for that. And we were like, look, that's where Dad's sleeping in the van. But were you asleep?
No. I got to thinking about the weather, and I was just thinking, hey, let's get this over with. You guys get back here. But it did turn out to be one of your favorite hikes. So
it did.
Rain doesn't slow you down. As long as it's not lightning and as long as it's not, some of the other more severe weather, then again, I think we learned go ahead and hike. It's a good idea.
Yeah, and I did put my foot down and told him if the rain got too heavy or if it looked like lightning, we were going to hightail it back to the van. But luckily, none of that happened, and we got to have a great hike in the rain. And you can go check out that picture where we were like, look, Dad's sleeping in the van over there. And he was like, what are they doing? Why is it taking them so long? He couldn't see us all the way over there at the top of Virginia Falls, even though we could see the van sticking out like a sore thumb in the parking lot at St. Mary. So that was really fun.
Well, that wraps up our trip to Glacier.
It does.
I hope you enjoyed it. We covered a lot of good stuff. I think we can definitely say, hey, there's a lot for everybody. There's so many things we didn't cover. We could probably spend a lifetime up here and never tell you everything there is to hike and do. But you also can join us next week for episode 7. We're headed to the Pacific Northwest.
Woohoo! Yeah, stop number 2 on our 2024 summer road trip is Olympic! We did go to Olympic National Park. We drove from Montana all the way to Washington, and so we'll take you on that leg of our trip over to the Port Angeles KOA. Yep, we went to another KOA, y'all, in Port Angeles, Washington. This was awesome. My first time to the Pacific Northwest. You had been there for a work trip before in the winter.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about on this one. From the huge trees to the forest. If there's a taller canopy with more of a ferny type, huge trees in the world, I don't know where it's at. Mm-hmm. If it gets any bigger than this, it's not going to look real.
And the beaches.
The beaches coming right up against the Pacific Coast Highway. Those big rock structures that are out on the water.
It's going to be great. Don't forget to connect with us on Facebook. We are Highways and Hilltops. On Instagram, we are Jody Charlie Keith. And visit our website for full episode photo galleries and links and all the goodies at www.highwaysandhilltops.com. www.highwaysandhilltops.com. Also, don't forget to follow our show on your podcast app. It's really important to help us get noticed. So if you want to support our show, that's a great way to do it. Hit follow in your app, and it'll also notify you as soon as we drop new episodes. So if you want to be one of the first to know when new episodes release, that's how you're going to do it so that you can get a notification right on your phone. Also, rate and review us, only if you love it, because it's really important. I think that's it.
We'll see you guys later.
We hope you get to go explore something fun this week. Bye-bye.
See you later.